Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Before I begin, I just want to thank our worship team. These guys do a great job, and they don't just get up there and become who they are. It takes a lot of practice during the week. So thank you, worship team. Give them a round of applause, please. Well, it is an honor and a privilege to be up here today. People always ask me, do you get nervous when you come up here and speak? And the answer is yes. Amen. Every time. That's right. It's not because I really have a problem talking publicly. It's because that bringing the Word of God is an awesome responsibility. Yes. You know, I want to make sure that the Word I bring you is the Word that God has given me. And it's my heart that you'll be touched by this Word today and maybe impacted on your lives. And to be honest, I probably feel just as nervous when I'm speaking to one person about Jesus. Because the words that I speak are really words of life and death. They're that important, so yes, I do get nervous. So if you get nervous when you're up here, and if you're nervous talking to somebody, don't feel bad. You're in good company. Yeah, okay, that concludes my message for today. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next Sunday. Okay. All right. Before I begin, though, I want to let you know that I will be bouncing around a lot today, and I'll be paraphrasing a lot too. So you are welcome to follow me, but if you do, it's probably very likely that you're just going to get dizzy. So if I were you, I'd sit back, relax, hold the hand of the person next to you, assuming that's your wife, and just kind of relax and enjoy the day. Amen? Amen. I'd like to begin by reading the definition of two words. The first word is impossible. The definition is incapable of existing, occurring, or being done. All right. It's impossible for my hair to grow back tonight. It's not going to happen. It just can't happen. All right. The definition of miracle is an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that's contrary to all known human and natural laws and is believed to be caused by divine intervention. That's when the impossible that I just said can't happen does happen. And what we say is because God did it. Right. Now, could our hair grow back tonight while you guys are follically challenged? Yeah, it could happen. It would be God that did it, nothing else. Amen? Right. Amen. All right. So the title of today's message is God Speaks and the Impossible Happens. Amen? All right. And when I was putting this together, I had to ask myself, has God ever asked me to do something that I knew was impossible? And the answer is no, He hasn't. My wife and I did raise 3 children, which is almost impossible, but it can be done. But no, I've never been asked to do anything impossible, and I don't think God has ever asked any of you to do anything that's possible as well. But the men and women of the Bible were routinely asked to do things that they knew were impossible. That's true. But they did them because they also believed that every word that God speaks is true. God says this will happen, that will happen. God says if you do this, this will happen, no matter how impossible it may be seen. So today I want to talk to you about Joshua. We all know about Joshua and the walls of Jericho. But there's so much more to that story that we need to talk about. It's full of God's favor upon the children of Israel and the faith that Joshua and his people had. So I'm going to talk about that today. So you all know who Joshua was. Joshua was a servant of God. He also was Moses' right-hand man. And he was there with Moses when Moses led his people out of Egypt. He was there when that Red Sea was parted as well. So he saw the favor that God had given them. He saw the miracles. So he believed. So I'm going to pop up now to about 2 years later. And it says a little over 2 years that the people coming out of Egypt were headed for the Promised Land. But a big change of direction was going to happen at Kadesh Barnea. The Israelites sent 12 spies into the land to check out who the enemy was and develop strategy to conquer them. God was going to allow them to go to the Promised Land after just 2 years. But first they had to defeat and drive out some of their enemies in order to possess the land. And when the spies came back, 10 of them said what? Yeah, there are giants in that land. The cities are huge. The cities are fortified. We can't conquer these people. And they refused to enter the land. Now keep in mind that God had just got done a couple years before bringing them out of Egypt. He had presented 10 supernatural wonders in the form of plagues to get them out of there. He also parted the Red Sea. And when they were in the land, in the desert, who fed them? Yeah, how do you do that? Yeah, manna from heaven. He provided manna from heaven. He provided water, not in the bottle, but there was water. Everything they needed to sustain them was given to them through supernatural means. And yet, 2 years later, that was just a memory to them. We can't do this. We can't take that land. The men are too big. The cities are too... Oh, God, you just can't do this. So when God saw their negative attitudes and their lack of faith and belief in his power, he literally threw up his hands and said, that's it. I've had it with you people. He wanted to end their lives and start over again, but Moses intervened for them on their behalf once again. So God said that I'll allow them to live, but there's going to be consequences for your lack of faith. At this point, he tells them all the men who are 20 years and older would not enter the Promised Land due to the lack of faith and belief in them. He said they would all wander in the desert for the next 40 years until they all literally died in the desert. Not a great future. But that was the consequence for their lack of faith and not believing that God could do what he said he would do. So the spies that went out to spy in the land did so for 40 days. So as a result of their faithless report, God pronounced his judgment that they should wander in the desert for 40 years for the 40 days that they were spying on the land. Now that's where Joshua and Caleb come in. God then tells Joshua and Caleb that they and the younger generation under the ages of 20 would be the ones who would be able to go into the Promised Land because they had wholeheartedly followed God. Now who do we have in here that's under 20? Under 20. Not you, Tom. You're double age. Okay. I know you guys, come on. How old are you guys? You guys are under, right? All right. You guys are under 20. Come on. Listen, you are the ones that God was going to take and use to conquer the land of Canaan. You guys. You guys. All you guys. You girls in the back. It is impressive. So, Caleb and Joshua were the two spies that they were full of faith and belief in God, and they believed that he would defeat all the enemies. Once they got the Promised Land, they would conquer that. So now I'm going to fast forward again, 40 years. Kind of like life in general. So the Israelites finally approached the boundary of the Promised Land in the town of Shittim. Moses had died, and God had transferred the power to Joshua. He was now their leader. So now Joshua, Caleb, and the Israelites are on the east bank of the Jordan, and they are ready to cross the Jordan to take the land that promised them. But they got a problem. Okay, so here's the bank, and here is Joshua and his tribes. In the middle is the Jordan River. Now normally, in the dry season, the Jordan River is about 100 yards wide, 3 feet deep, easy to cross. But this was the rainy season. This was the flood season. So at this time, that river where they were going to cross was about 1 mile wide. It was fast flowing. It was raging down the roads. It was full of mud. And each bank had these reeds and a slope to it. So they had two options. They could wait for the dry season, or they could believe that God would do the impossible. Joshua believed that God would do the impossible. Now keep in mind, it's not just Joshua and a handful of soldiers. This is the entire country of Israel. There are thousands and thousands of people that are right behind them. Here's this river. We can't cross this river. Maybe one or two guys maybe go upstream, float down. But you could not take an entire country across this river. So there really was no choice. They either sat there or they said, Lord, do the impossible. And Joshua was a man of faith. He said, I believe that God will do the impossible. So in chapter 3, verse 7, it says, and the Lord said to Joshua after Joshua had spoken to him, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you have come to the edge of the water of Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan. And verse 9, so Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he, without fail, will drive out from you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and any other ites that happen to be around. They're all gone. So behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of the earth is crossing over before you into Jordan. Now therefore take for yourselves 12 men from your tribes of Israel, one man for each tribe. And it shall come to pass as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off. The waters that come down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap. Now remember that these are all new people except for Joshua and Caleb. They had never seen the Red Sea being parted. This is all new to them. This is a new river. This is a new obstacle for them. 14, so was when the people set out from their camp to cross over from the Jordan, when the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped their edge in the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still, and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zeratan. So the waters that went down into the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, failed and were cut off. And the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Then the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had crossed completely into Jordan. Now, this wasn't just like God making like a 10-foot path here. He actually stopped the water miles upstream and downstream as well. Because remember, we have a whole city, a whole country that has to cross that river. You're not going to do it in 5 feet. It would take them months. They're going to cross it one time. So here they are watching this, and all of a sudden the water just stops. You can't even see where it stopped. It's just gone. And not only that, all that mud that was there, what happened to that? Dry land. They were able to cross and take livestock, whatever it is, across as well. Pretty impressive. So can you imagine what it was like to stand on the wrong side of Jordan and look into the land which God had promised, but there seems to be no way to get there? Oh man, I can see it. It's right there, but I can't get there. But there was a way. They had to believe that all God spoke was true. They had to have faith to step in that river. Now Joshua's instructions would have seemed impossible to people. When you see the ark move, follow it. Now, even though people trusted Joshua, it had to be hard to take that first step. So there they are at the front. They're ready to go. Okay, we're ready to go, guys. You ready? Let's go. Okay, let's go. Let's pick up your foot and put it in the river. You got to trust God and trust me. So Joshua had an answer for them. He said, move out and follow the ark because you've not traveled this way before. Remember, they had to see the Red Sea parted. So he said, listen, you got to trust me. You got to trust God. When you put your foot goes in that river, you're going to hit dry ground. Believe me, this is going to happen. We serve a mighty God. Come on, He's sustained us for 40 years. Why would He fail you now? Why would He bring us here, not to take us into the land, to conquer it? Come on. So when the people of Israel stepped out to cross the river, they discovered that we can trust God even in times when we are facing something that seems impossible.
Yes.
We can trust God to lead us to a place, even though we don't see the path before us. Amen? Amen. So in our lives, we encounter rivers and obstacles that block our progress from what God wants us to do. A lot of times we come to the obstacle, we stop. We don't know what to do when the obstacle is too great. The river's too wide, it's too deep, it's too fast. We begin to trust in our abilities and fear the obstacle itself. Because we look at ourselves and we say, listen, I can't do it. I can't cross that river. Well, of course I can. But I can trust God to get me across. But when you stop believing that God can do what He says He's going to do for you, then you're not going to ever get anywhere. You will always be on the wrong side of the river. Amen? Has anybody ever been on the wrong side of the river before? Yeah. I thank you for all you honest people right there. Everybody has. So your heart is to do great things for God, and you want God to do great things for you. But here you stand at the river's edge. It's a river of past rejection, past failure, fear of commitment. It may be a river of bitterness, anger, or unforgiveness. It's right there in front of you, and you're paralyzed. I can't step in that river. It's just too big. It is just too wide. So let's remember that when God parted the water, it wasn't before the priest stepped into the water, but after they took the first step. Now remember, even the priests, they're carrying the ark. Even the priests are there. Now they're priests, they believe, but still, you have a river a mile wide, and they got the ark. Okay, Tom, go ahead. I'm behind you, brother. Step out, I got you, man. They had to step in, and when they stepped in, the water parted. They walked halfway through, and then they stopped in the middle of the river, and they stood there with the ark. So as the people came, they had to go by that. And there was a purpose to that, because as they passed them, they passed the glory of God. There's the ark. God was reminding them, listen, this is happening because I am with you. Amen. So that's why they did that. So the people of Israel trusted God and crossed over to the Jordan River into the land of Canaan. This was the land of milk and honey that God had promised them through Abraham 500 years ago. 500 years, and they've just come into it right now. So after spending 40 difficult years wandering in the desert, the people of Israel were now on the eastern banks of the Jordan. Now their challenge was to take the land of Canaan. Their next impossible obstacle was the city of Jericho. Now keep in mind too that it says that when they crossed the river, that they camped for 4 days, and they celebrated Passover before they began to do this. And when they did that, they actually used the food from the land to celebrate Passover, and at that point, the manna from heaven stopped. God says, you are now in the promised land. This land will sustain you. And from that point on, they had to feed themselves because of what God had given them. That was for 4 days. So, Jericho was an impossible obstacle. Do you have the slide of the city? Tori, your raise is gone. Just and then again, maybe it's an invisible wall. I don't know. I'll start talking about it. It's okay. Anyway, the city was built on a tell. And a tell is a big, huge mound of dirt. It's a monstrous mound of dirt. And it was protected by massive walls. There was a retaining wall that was about 15 feet high. And then there was another wall behind that, which was about 26 feet high and 6 feet wide. So you've got these two monstrous walls. One is 15 feet, and then the other one comes behind that. It's 26 feet, and it's about 6 feet thick. Now after that, it's built on a slope, a very steep slope that goes up to the top of a hill. And at the top of the hill, there was another massive wall, which at the top was 6 feet thick and 20 feet high. So from the top of that top wall to the bottom where the Israelites would have been was approximately 46 feet high. That's almost a 5-story building. It's a monstrous, monstrous walled city. And it was 26 feet thick, so you can't come under it, and you can't get over it. It was virtually impregnable. But Joshua was a man of faith, and he knew that God would make a way. So in chapter 5, the commander of the Lord's army appeared before him with a sword drawn and told him he was stepping on holy ground. Now, most theologians believe that that was Jesus incarnate, and he was there to take Joshua into that land. And when Joshua saw that he had the sword above him, that signified the fact that, listen, I'm going to go before you with my sword. I will give you this city. And he was on holy ground as well, so Joshua got down before him and knew that he was standing in the presence of the Holy One. So Joshua knew, I got this in the bag. I'm good. God's going before me. The city's ours. Now in chapter 6, verses 1 through 7, it says, now Jericho was securely shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hand, its king and the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all you men of war. You shall go around the city once. This you shall do for 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets and ram's horns before the ark. But the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. It shall come to pass when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, that all the people will shout with a great shout, then the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up every man straight before him. Does that really make any sense? Not really. I'm going to yell at the wall, it's going to come down. Okay, I believe. So Jericho was on full alert. Their army was ready. Now remember, it's likely that when the water was parted, there were people from Canaan on the other side watching that as well. So they probably saw this as well, and they were like, wow, let's get out of here. So what happened was all the people that were in that area, they left their villages and they came into the city of Jericho. And at that time, there was probably, they think, 3,000 or 4,000 people inside the fortress at that time. Now, here's a little bit of a problem. It was built on a tell, but inside that tell they had natural springs. So they had water. They didn't have to come out. And the crops had just come in, so their warehouses were full of food. They suspected they could last 3-4 years in there, never have to come out. They were that well fortified. So from a human perspective, it's impossible. Yet from God's perspective, the battle was already over, because what he said to Joshua, I have, past tense, I have given Jericho into your hand. He'd already done it. So up to this point, everything had been more or less getting ready. Now it's time to take care of business. The Canaanites must be driven out of Israel so that Israel can occupy that which God's promised them. Now Jericho was not an exceptionally large city. It was about 6 acres in diameter, but it was an important fortress city. If Israel could defeat Jericho, then they could take anything else in the land. So again, we see the wisdom of God saying, listen, I'm going to give you your hardest task first, all right, not your easiest. When we do things, what do? We take the path of what? Least resistance. So sure, we'll go the easy way. That's who we are. But God says, no, I'm going to give you the hardest battle first. And when you win that, everything else is going to be good. Amen? So God told them to march around the city. Now, that's a method of warfare that made absolutely no sense to anybody. It required total dependence on God. It required great faith in Joshua, because he had to explain and lead the great nation in this plan, which made absolutely no sense. It required faith in the nation, because they had to follow Joshua in his plan that made absolutely no sense. So God said that the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up every man straight before him. It was a plan for victory that would clearly be the work of the Lord. Yet God gave them something to do so that Israel could work in partnership with God. Now, obviously, it was something that God could have done himself, but he wanted them to be part of his work, as he wants us to be part of his work today. Now, let me ask you a question. If God wanted to, could he fill this place to overflowing next week?
Yes.
Sure he could.
Yes.
He's God. And I do believe that this place will be filled at some point in time. But that's because of your faith and your determination and the work that you do. Listen, planting a church and growing a church is not easy. It's hard, especially in the beginning. And a church grows primarily one way. Any thoughts? Yeah, you ask people to come. That's how it grows. Now, if you're here today and you're going to be in this church, and this is where you're going to call it your home church, God has already put a work on your heart. He already knows what He's going to use you for. And as time goes by and you're faithful in coming, God will reveal that to you. And then what you're going to do is talk to Pastor Tom or myself or Randy, and he's going to say, listen, this is what I'd like to do in your house. This is what I feel I can do best for your church. Right? So a church grows by asking people to come. And as they come and they get connected in the church, and they get excited about the worship and the word and what's happening in the church, then they will bring other people as well. You know, mega churches didn't start out as mega churches. You know, they started out with a handful of people. We attended a church up in New York for a long time, and they started out with 15 people in their living room. And now they've got 5 campuses in New York State. They're one of the biggest churches in the state. And all because they asked people to come to church. Amen? So next week, what are you going to do? Yes, thank you. You guys are listening. This is awesome. This is great. So work, it's work. The church is going to grow by work, and that work's going to come from you guys. God will help us, but it's your hand. So it's verses 6 and 7. Then Joshua, the son of Nun, called the priest and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, proceed and march around the city, and let him who is armed advance before the ark of the Lord. Now Joshua had to tell the priests what was going on because this was very unusual. Normally, priests in the Ark of the Covenant do not go with the Israelites to battle, but this was a unique time and a unique place. The ark was there to remind people that God was with them as they marched around. That was the presence of God right there. That's who God is in that ark right there. So He's going to go before it. And it says the ark would be important because it would keep their hearts and minds on God rather than focusing on how difficult the task is before them. So, I've done that before, where I've had something in front of me that just seemed overwhelming, and I focused in on the task, but not on God. So consequently, it takes me twice as long to do it. I might not have done as good a job as I could have, and if I just said, Lord, I'm here, I'm your servant, tell me what you have me to do. And Joshua had to tell the people, because what they were going to do was unusual. This was not the way to conquer a walled, fortified city. We'll just kind of stroll around the city for a day, 6 days. And the 7th day, we'll just yell, and it's going to come down, and we're going to go in and conquer the city. Okay, I'm with you on this. So on verses 8 through 14 was the march of the first 6 days. So it was when Joshua had spoken to the people that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord advanced and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant followed them. The armed men went out before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came up afterwards. Now Joshua had commanded the people, saying, you shall not shout or make any noise with your voice, nor shall a word proceed out of your mouth until the day I say to you, shout. Then you will all shout. So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going around it once. Then he came back to camp, started the fires, had a little food, relaxed, and got ready for the next day. It doesn't say that there, that was me, just so you know. So, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. Then 7 priests, bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns, before the ark of the Lord, went on continually and blew the trumpets. And the armed men went before them. But the rear guard came after the ark of the Lord, while the priests continued blowing the trumpets. And the 2nd day, they marched around the city once and returned to camp. They did this for 6 days. 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now remember, they still have no idea what's going to happen here. This is just craziness. We're going to walk around. Now, and remember that the people of Jericho are watching this too. They're up on the towers. Now, they might have been scared. They might have been full of awe, or they might have been laughing at them. You know, calling them bad names, throwing rotten fruit at them or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. We don't know what they were doing. But they were watching this. So Joshua does not hesitate to do what God says. Do this. So when we delay obeying God, what happens to us? We have rotten fruit thrown at us. It'll happen. So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going around it once. Now Jericho wasn't a large city. It wouldn't take them very long to do that. But as the people of Jericho saw the Israelites marching around the city, they had to be concerned. Now, we know the river was parted. We saw that. And now these guys are just marching around the city. They're not saying a word. Just quiet. Just marching. I would be a little nervous if I was them. And I think they probably were. So it took courage for Israel to do this. At this time, Israel was wide open to attack. Those men were up there. They could have been shooting arrows at them, but they didn't for whatever reason. And it would have been easy for the people of Jericho to just come down, attack, and maybe wipe them out. I don't know. But they didn't. So it took endurance for Israel to do this. The march was for 6 days, and they had a persistence doing something that made absolutely no sense to them. Now, while they were doing this job before, Israel was obvious. Through 6 days of silent marching, they had a good look at the walls that they knew were impenetrable, and they knew that this battle was big, much bigger than them. They knew that they could not take this city. They knew that the walls were too high. They knew they were too far in there. We can't do it. And they knew that. But still, they did what Joshua said to do because God had told him, and they believed that.
Amen.
But it came to pass on the seventh day that they rose early at the dawning of the day. They marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. Now remember that it wasn't a big city. It was probably maybe 5-6 acres and a ways around. But they did that 7 times in that day. So it would have taken them probably most of the day to march around that city 7 times. So if they started in the morning, it was probably mid-afternoon when it happened. And on that day, only but the strategy to conquer Jericho was unique in 2 ways. First, the strategy was devised by God himself. It wasn't Joshua who said, Lord, I have a great idea. Listen, just hear me out. It's a great idea. No, Joshua said, I can't take this place. I can't do it. God says, that's okay. I've got a plan for you. And the second thing, the strategy seemed to be a plan that made no sense. God simply told Joshua to have the people march around silently for 6 days, and not the 7th day to shout. I would have loved to have been there and watched that.
That's true.
And the historians that have gone in there, archaeologists, have said that what happened was there was a great earthquake that destroyed the walls of Jericho. Random chance? I don't think so. No. The earthquake, he shouted, they shouted, God created the earthquake. And the walls came down. And then they went in there and they took care of business according to what God said. So, though it seemed foolish, Joshua followed God's instructions to the letter. So when the people did finally shout, the walls came down. That must have been a sight for them as well, just coming back up and looking, here guys, good shout, just look for them. They yelled, and down it comes. The walls, these walls are 46 feet high, and 6 feet wide. I mean, and everything collapsed with a shout, just like that. God had given them the promised land in that city. That's amazing to me. In fact, as I mentioned, God had given them the city of Jericho before they even knew it. I had given the city. So it was when the people of God, by faith, followed the commands of God, that the walls of Jericho fell down. It's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a great story. Now, you may have a wall in front of you that's keeping you from doing what God wants you to do. And you might be looking at that saying, man, I can't get over it, and I can't get under it. I'm just not going to do anything. But what God's telling you is to have faith in him. And look to that wall and say, my God is bigger than this wall. And he's telling you to shout to that wall, and that wall will come down. And then whatever it is that's on the other side, that's there for you guys. It really is. Okay, I got just 4 more minutes. So now I'm going to jump real quick to New Testament. Now, this is the time when Jesus has come to earth to save us. Thank you very much. I needed that out by you guys. All right. I was lost before I knew Christ. He's come to save us. And he's in his ministry. And his ministry is punctuated by miracles. Not just a couple miracles. We're talking day after day. Everybody he comes in contact with, there's a miracle being done. In the book of John, John says that Jesus did so many miracles that this book could not contain the amount of miracles that he did. So I'm just real quickly going to talk about a couple of those things. And this is all about God's word. God saying, do this, and it happens. Now, there's a background story to all these verses, but I'm not going to get into that. I just want to talk about the miracle. But Matthew 8, a leper comes to him and says that if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus says, I'm willing. Be clean. That's it. That's it. Done. God spoke it and it happened. Same chapter. There's a centurion's servant was dying. And he came to Jesus and talked about that. You know the story. He had a man of great faith. So Jesus said that go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you. So when the centurion got back to his house, the servant was there. This wasn't a big, long, drawn-out prayer. He says, you're a man of faith. It's done. It's healed. Done. Gone. Word of God. Boom. Same chapter. Peter's mother-in-law is healed. He came to the house, and Peter's mother-in-law was sick. She had a fever. And she was quite ill, apparently. So what does Jesus do? He walks over and says, you're good. You're good. The fever's gone. You're good. That's all there was to it. Again, God spoke a word, and it was done. Same chapter. He's in the boat with the disciples, and a storm comes up. We all know this. You know? He's in there. He's kind of just chilling out, relaxing. You know, they're having a heart attack. They think the boat's going to tip over. He's going crazy. They wake him up. He's like, what am I going to do with you guys? And he rebukes the wind and the sea. And what happens? It becomes still. He waves his hand. That's all he does. It's because he's God. That was it. In chapter 9, the same book, a paralytic was brought in, and Jesus said, do you want to do well? Yeah, of course I do. Good. He says, what does he say? Yes, you rise, take up your bed, and go to your home. Word of God. Miracle follows. God speaks, the miracle happens.
Amen.
Amen.
Right.
Same chapter. Now, a ruler's daughter has died, but he believed that Jesus could raise her up. So Jesus went there. He ignored the hostility of the crowd because the crowd was laughing. Listen, she's dead. You can't do anything about that. He shoos everybody out. He goes in, and once again, he takes her hand. And what happens to her? He raised her up from the dead. Come on. Oh my gosh. Just took her hand and rose her up. If we had just 1/100th of the faith that we could do that, we could do that. Listen, everything that happens in the Bible, God has given us that power, that ability. It doesn't happen because I don't know that we always have the faith for that. We need to step out of faith more often and do that. Amen. Matthew 12. A man with a withered hand. So he comes and he says, do you want to be well? The man says, sure, of course. He goes, okay. Stretch out your hand. And it says, as soon as he did that, the Bible says that it became like the other one. These are not things that require hours of prayer. God was simply God. He knew who he was. He spoke the word, and he knew it was going to happen because he's God. He's the great I am.
That's right.
I went 1 minute over. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll probably never been asked to come back here. So today, I talked to you just briefly about the miracles that God does and the words of God. Listen, there's nothing impossible in your life. There really isn't. It doesn't really matter what obstacles you have. It doesn't matter how deep or wide the river is before you or how high the wall is. If you have faith, if you believe that God is who he says he is, if you believe that God is the great I am, whatever problem you've got is going to be gone. There's none of us should walk through this life having these problems. None. Now, are problems going to come our way? Of course they are. That's life in general. I mean, but it shouldn't be that way. We should be a people of joy. When we get up in the morning, we should be happy that we're alive and that we're chosen of God. When we come to church, you should come here with a smile on your face like, God is going to move in a great way today. I'm excited for what God's going to do in this house. Amen. I'm expecting the Holy Spirit to move in the house. Hey, Tommy, would you come up and give us just a little bit of background music, your brother? So today, maybe today, I'd like the prayer team to come up here as well. Now, you can see from what I talked about too is that when God spoke, when Jesus spoke, he was a man of few words, but of action. So, if you come up for prayer for me, I may pray for you for a minute or two. Please don't think that I'm not interested in what you have to say because it's a short prayer. I really am. But God has already put on my heart what you're coming up for and has given me the words. So I'm going to say those words and I'm going to speak out in faith and believe it. So, I'm not going to go on for 5 or 10 minutes because then you're just going to fall asleep and it's going to fall down on you. So we're not going to do that. So if you're in front of a river today, if you're there, and listen, maybe it's illness, maybe you're sick, maybe you need to be healed. That's the river for you. Step in that river today. If you've got a wall before you and you've got a problem that you need to get over that wall, you need to get through that wall, just come up. Just come up today. We're going to pray for you. All these people are going to pray for you. They will take that step in the river with you. They will climb, they will crush that wall with you. They will shout with you to get that wall to come down. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be anger, bitterness, unforgiveness. It could be ill health. It could be finances. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. God took Joshua in the promised land. He split the river. He brought the walls down. They conquered them. So that's your day as well. So if you have a prayer, come on up and we'll pray with you. Would you guys all stand, please? Tommy, can you do a song? Sing a song.
John was talking today, he talked about how the people walked around the walls of Jericho, and then on the 7th day they shouted. And we don't think about that shouting, but there was thousands of them shouting at the top of their voice. That must have made things shake. And you can do that today too, by stepping out and saying, Lord, I'm shouting today. I'm saying I have the victory because you gave it to me. Don't sit in your seat if you have something that you want God to bring down. Begin to shout to him today. Begin to feel that trembling as you begin to shout against those things that bind you today. Be excited and know that God will give you victory. Amen? Amen. Hallelujah.
The enemy has been defeated, and death couldn't hold you down. Lift our voice in victory, we're gonna make your praises loud. 'Cause the enemy has been defeated, and death couldn't hold you down.